on, and so we'll recognize him and tell him he can go back to work. 'Cause I don't see anything else on the agenda unless I missed something.
There are two LS applications.
What was that?
Aren't there two LS applications?
Why am I missing those? Where am I missing
Because
those?
they were late additions, I think.
They were in the supplemental, I think.
There we go. Sorry. Yes, Blanchett and Bennett. Well, what did you find out? Want to take them individually? Well, first I should call the roll. Let's get it started officially. So it's about 9:05. John DeWolf. We spoke to him this morning, but I don't see him on it right now. Richard Swizak.
Here.
Lewandowski.
Yes.
DeAndrea here. Bob Doan.
Here.
Al is always here. Good morning, Al.
Good morning.
And we have Bob Don representing Surveyors and Ryan Thompson for Surveyors.
I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning.
So having made that role official, why don't we move to the supplemental agenda for Class 6 exam credit part 1, Daniel Blanchett and Christopher Bennett.
Well, I guess I'll start, but I think for Christopher Bennett, recommend full approval. For Blanchett, I think I recommend approval, but I want to run something by the group here because and maybe Bob can weigh in. But he doesn't have all the required signatures. But the reason why is because he has worked for his mother and father for his entire career. He is a licensed engineer, and he has the LSIT, but he has not worked for anybody but his parents. His father's a licensed PE and LS, and his mother's a licensed PE, and he's just worked in the family business his entire career for about 10 years or so. I can't remember exactly. No, I got the wrong one open. But anyway, he's for the amount of time that he's been in the industry, he's been working for his parents. So he only has 4 of the 5 required signatures. So I don't know if how that's usually handled. He wrote a letter explaining it. In my opinion, it seems sufficient, but I don't know what the precedent is.
I don't know that we have any precedent unless somebody else can remember. Bob, I don't think so.
I don't think we do.
I don't know if he's in a quote small market. There's a limit. He has 4 outside signatures.
Well, so I mean, not really. He actually has
his mother and father.
He has his mother and his father, and then he has 2 additional signatures.
Right.
How is it worded in the application? Because some of them have 3 signatures. Is that for? And then some are 5. I don't have the regulation in front of me.
Yeah, give me just a second to get back to it. I ended up closing it. I don't know why I did that right before this. Bob, while I'm looking for this, do you have any comments on it, or?
Well, no, not really. I think in the past we've kind of always said you need an additional signature, but I'm not positive that that's always been the case.
Okay, so I have it open here. Okay, so he got.
I think a couple of times I've been unable to sign for an applicant. I'm looking in the application.
Okay, so here's what it says. Signatures required below are as follows. Application for land surveyor, at least 5 persons, of whom at least 4 shall be members of your profession and not related to you.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Related.
And at least 1 who is listed in the experience record section. And so his issue is that he's got, oh wait, hold on. Let me get back to the right page here. His issue is he's got, let me just find his signature page. All right, so he has, so he's got Dennis Blanchett, which is his father. He's got John Bartolome, which that one's fine. And then he's got Janet Blanchett, which is his mother, and then he's got Alex St. Peter, which actually is not even, he's not an LS, he's an SIT. So that doesn't really count. And then he has a blank. So really, he's only got 1 legitimate signature.
Well, how, the relatives are excluded entirely?
Well, I mean, so that's
Does that mean the dad can't endorse them?
according to our requirements here. And I mean, because it says specifically at least 5 persons, who are not related to you.
Where's
Yeah.
Ryan? Where's their office? Where do they work out of? Just out of curiosity.
Let me see if I have that. Let's see.
Is there nobody in the
it's
town that he
J&D
works in?
Civil Engineers LLC, which I'm not sure where does he say that location is. Hold on.
What's his mailing address?
Yeah, well, I had to scroll up and down. So
Yeah, I know. One disadvantage of online applications. There you go, Bob. I know you're pointing that finger at me right now.
So it appears so A&D Civil Engineers looks like it's in North Grosvenordale, in Connecticut. So I'm not actually entirely familiar where that is.
Isn't it out by Thompson?
Well, probably because his address is in Pomfret. So
Yeah.
My point is that other than association within CALS, if he's not a member of CALS, then he could, or he should be, but he could talk it up at CALS and get a signature. Do I know anybody? And working in a small market, I mean, sometimes that's just a disadvantage from familiarity. Is there a licensed engineer or surveyor in the towns in which he works? I know it's a difficult call. My inclination at this point would be to encourage him to get the signatures to make it official, but allow him to take the exam. And I don't see a problem. We need the proof that he can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree that we'd like to have a little bit more of a confirmation that he's doing things correctly than just his family business. But his experience, it all seems, the way he words things, the way he explains his experience, all seems to be in order. I guess the fact that he did have John Bartolome on there as a reference is pretty. I mean, in my mind, that's a pretty good endorsement. I don't know, Bob, what you think about that, but
I personally, I'm not familiar with the endorser. So I mean, if he's licensed, he's licensed.
Yeah.
He meets the requirement.
Yeah.
And
there's another side to this. If the person you solicit to sign my application and I don't really know you, then what are we gathering out of it? You know, if I
Well-
don't know you, I don't know
Yeah.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
right. That's kind of my thought too. Is it's like my opinion is that it's probably sufficient. I mean, it's an established. Well, I'm assuming an established firm. I don't really know the firm. I do know John. I know of John Bartolome, but that's about as far as that goes. He seemed, he's willing to endorse him. And if he hasn't worked with other people, then, you like you said, like you can't just go and knock on surveyors' doors and say, can you sign off for me,
Knowing the mentality of surveyors, they'd probably say, no, I'm not signing it. I don't need any more competition. Get out of here. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think I personally think that we should allow them to take the exam and the endorsement will prove itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the sensible half of my brain, and it's probably not a half, it's probably more like a quarter that's sensible, but whatever percentage of my brain is sensible says if he can pass the test, that's all we need to know. But then there is the thing of, what is the letter of the regulation? And, at the very least, we should, be looking towards trying to augment the regulation somehow so that somebody in this circumstance has some venue to get through. But it's also not a bad thing to get out and know
meet
your
people.
Yeah.
peers.
Yeah. That's why I
So-
said if you were a member of CALS, at least you had some familiarity at a meeting to discuss what it is. I know you. The other part of it is how many times, while I don't study every endorsement, how many times have you ever seen this guy's not qualified to be licensed?
Right.
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
So-
No, you're not going to submit it.
No. So where we go from there?
Yeah.
Well, I would support
it-
certainly having them take the exam, and under the circumstances, I think we have the prerogative to consider the circumstances, and I would vote for him to take the
Yeah,
exam.
I agree.
So
with you,
that we can, move on to, maybe having a vote on this. I know Ryan made a motion for Mr. Bennett, and I
Yeah.
will second that.
All right, let's do
And
that.
I'm not sure that he made a motion. on
No, not
Mr.
yet,
Blanchett
not yet.
Or not.
So let's
But
take Bennett.
if he did, I'll second that one too, just so that we can move it along.
Let's just do them separately, Bob, because they're a little bit different. So there's a motion and a second to approve Christopher Bennett for Class 6 Credit Part 1. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ryan, you want to make a motion about Daniel recognizing the unique circumstances?
Sure. I make a motion that we move to allow Daniel Blanchett to take the exam, given that he does not have the required signatures. Is that a good way to word it?
Yeah, with recognizing that the lack of compliance with the application for signatures, but yeah, I think we've discussed it, and I think we understand the circumstances. So,
Okay.
is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Robert. Any other discussion? All
This
those
is
in
Ken Peters. This is Ken Peterson. I'm on the line, telephone. I couldn't get through.
Who's that?
Ken
Ken
Peterson.
Oh, Ken. Hi, Ken. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Have you been listening to
Morning,
that
Ken.
discussion?
No, I just got through on my
Oh, okay.
with my phone because I couldn't get on with them to the meeting. I don't know why. I wouldn't accept.
All right. Well, the issue here is that Daniel Blanchett works for a small family run firm. Parents are
Yes.
at least one PE and LS, and the other one is an
Correct.
engineer. He has
Yes.
one legitimate surveying recognition, a signature. But the motion is to accept him and allow him to take the exam, understanding that circumstance.
I agree with that. I would vote
Okay.
in favor of that.
All right. So all those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
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 All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. All right. Now, we have, if you want to participate in that right now, we did have the minutes from December.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I'd abstain.
Yes, sir. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes of December 5th as presented? If not, is there a motion to accept them as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And with that, I do believe we, oh, I'm sorry, we have Janita. I see you over there on the side, and you have presented two summaries of complaint investigation. And
Yes, sir.
I want to go on record right off the beginning. I'll never understand open current dash closed current. I'll never understand that thing.
I'm not even sure I understand it. It was created by our former director and a former consultant to the department's IT group. The director was John Newman and it was Bob Prell. I'm not exactly sure what that means other than we got the complaint before and it's still open. We got the complaint before and now we closed it. We got the
Okay.
complaint new and it's still open. We got the complaint new and we closed it. And that's the best understanding that I have of it. And it's part of the reporting system. So that's the best that I know. And with the first one, September 1st, 2023 through October 31st of 2023, this might be a duplicate, but I wasn't sure, so I sent it to Rochelle anyway. The first one was a civil matter with regards to a land surveyor. The investigator investigated it. There were no violations. The complainant has a surveyor, and her neighbor, who's got their own surveyor, is who the lady in the complaint that made the complaint is complaining about, but she didn't hire the surveyor in question. She has her own. So there's a dispute and a facts and a civil matter, and it was closed as such so that they can work it out, because I believe the lady in question is deciding or determined in her opinion that the first surveyor was totally wrong. And property boundaries, is it this rock and this tree, or is it really 2 feet further and it's at my fence?
All right, so I don't know which case you're referring to right now, but is it one of the two or one of the three? And regardless, you've described it as a civil matter.
Right, 2023-39.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And then 2023-62, the two parties resolved the matter between themselves.
Okay.
So the file was closed.
All right.
So now when we go to the November 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023, we received one new complaint and 3 files were closed. And in each of the closed files, there's, the investigator said it's a dispute of facts, it's a civil matter, and, that's why it's being closed.
Okay. All right. Any questions? I'm no less confused, but it doesn't really matter because they're ongoing or closed. And it,
Yes.
you know, a dispute over fees, it's never going to be here before the board to be resolved. All right.
Right.
Okay.
So,
All right. We appreciate that. Anything
not
else
a problem.
to add? If not, thank you very much, Anita. Is
No,
there any other
I have
surveying
nothing.
business that we need to attend to for Ken and Bob?
Just while they're here, I just want to reiterate that next month I wanted to have a conversation and I still need to send the information out, and I will probably this week, about the changing standards and the
Right.
required action that this board will have to do in order to address basically going to the international push, the new datum, and then language about allowing for some sort of equivalent accuracy standards for GPS that's similar to the A2. I need to send out all that information for everybody to review before, but I'd like to have a conversation to start next month. So just be ready for that if you could.
I think that would be good and appropriate. And Ryan, perhaps you could also, whatever information you're garnering for us to consider is what statute and or regulation would need to be addressed, because then it's going to take, I think, an effort by all of us to contact our own local legislators to suggest that it has to be done. And at the same time, we could finally address the issue of the education that would make John DeWolf very happy, and all of us, to just to be statutorily correct rather than following our policy for 25 years. Right?
Exactly.
So I think that's something that when we present it to those who could assist in that effort to change the statute, they have to understand how and why.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to try to get that out by the end of this week, actually. It's on my list of 30 things to do.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Otherwise, there's no other additional surveying information. Then Bob and Ken, you may be excused, and appreciate the participation.
Thank you, Tony.
Happy New Year, folks.
Thank you.
See
you guys.
Right. Yep, bye now.
So that would move us over to our regular agenda for application. We didn't have any new correspondence that I'm aware of, and no new business. So we did have a list of candidates who took the CBT exams in civil and electrical. We did have one electrical, and the other, whatever it was, 6 applicants were all in civil. So they did pass the CBT exams through December for information only. And then on page 3 of our regular agenda, we had applicants for Class 1 exam credit part 1. I reviewed the first 2, Arias, Bowie, and Burrows. I found both of them to be appropriate and ready to take the exam with the EIT. So my recommendation is to approve them. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
Thanks, Bob. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve Arias, Bowie, and Burrows for Class 1 exam credit part 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Richard, you had Durfler and Lake for class 1, credit part 1.
Yes, I reviewed both of them, and they both had, the appropriate references, the education, the EIT, and the experience. They had actually, both of them had over 6 years. One had over 6 and one had over 10,
Good.
which is, we're not nitpicking at that 3.999 years of experience. So it was an easy decision. I'll make a motion that we approve both of those applications.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Rob Lewandowski reviewed the next 4. Mullins, Perez, Rafa, and Schlichting.
All right, we're gonna parse this a little bit, Tony.
Okay,
Kyle Mullins, Bariba Rifa, and Richard or
Schlichting.
Joseph?
Schlichting.
Richard, okay. All 3 of those, good references, good degree, EIT, good experience, straightforward. I recommend them for approval.
Okay,
I'll
second.
second that.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve Mullins, Rifa, and Schlichting for class 1 exam, credit part 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So we move over to Rafa. Perez.
No, Perez, yeah, Omar Perez. So Omar Perez is what I had sent around, I think to you, Tony, and
Yeah.
John DeWolf was in the conversation. So he has a BS in environmental science from Marist. I don't have he has an EIT. He has good references, good experience, but his degree, I don't think passes muster with what we've considered in the past equivalent to an engineering degree. And I don't have the printouts, of course, Tony, but as I remember when I sent it around, NCES.
They gave him a glowing evaluation.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now just to make sure I don't misspeak. Outcome equivalent.
He met
So,
yeah.
yeah, so NCS said it's an equivalent degree. I don't know. In the past, we have not let these degrees fly by, so
Right.
that's why I pulled the brake on it.
Right, and I agree. And later on, John DeWolf had indicated his opinion was of the same as yours and mine, that at best, we should table this and say to NCWS, let's get this straight. Now, if you follow through what I sent this morning for further consideration, the dialogue between NCWS is right on the money. They say, look, it doesn't comply, period. And it may be that other states allow some variation from the model law for the undergraduate, but in that summary on the one that I sent around this morning, that was very clear. You don't meet it. It's a science degree. You don't have the qualification. So we want to know, and I think John offered today to write a letter with specific requests for clarification. How did you come to this conclusion? My first reading was, in all honesty, if I had read this as an environmental engineering degree, BS in environmental engineering, I would have thought that was an accredited program and I wouldn't have looked twice. But when you do look at it, it doesn't have any of the basic core from the engineering curriculum that we've been used to. So at best, I think, it should be tabled until it's clarified. What I also wanted to point out is when we go to this national, discussion all the time, it's like they call it decoupling. In other words, take the exam whenever you want and take your chances later on when you go to a particular jurisdiction. So we can table and say, we're not approving you to take the exam in Connecticut. We should follow that application, and see if he goes elsewhere and signs up at CBT and takes the exam. So
the only other, Tony, the only other wrinkle I'd add into this is, and I was just confirming it now, he has a Master's of Engineering
Yes.
in Environmental Engineering from Stevens,
Yes, sir.
which I don't know what that means. I don't know what it entails. But that probably should be added into the equation somehow. I just don't know how. We don't have any information on it. So I would
Correct.
definitely
So-
say table it, get more
Right.
information and understand this thing better to be
Right,
consistent.
so they didn't give us, typically NCWS doesn't do the evaluation of the master's program.
Yeah.
Agreed? That's what we found, so I believe we found over the years. So I guess in the past, when we've had this concern about the undergraduate, there had to be evidence that there was a conscious effort to add courses to the graduate program to compensate for it. And if it just doesn't seem consistent with that past approach. So therefore, I think that, well,
Tony,
you
we
can
had-
make the motion, but I would support tabling it. And
Tony, if I could interrupt for a second.
yes,
So the evaluation does include the masters. If you look at the top part of the evaluation, it says what they're evaluating basically.
Okay, hold on. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right.
so what does that mean? That you ignore all the basics in the soils and the structures and everything else that goes along with the normal evaluation? Or are you evaluating this entirely on a curriculum as an accredited course in environmental engineering? So maybe that's what we need to clarify. So if some states or jurisdictions have discipline specific and it's environmental engineering, and the course of study that was provided here, it wasn't like it was just chemistry. It was designed as an undergraduate curriculum for a degree in environmental engineering. But that's not the way it seemed to be presented.
Is there any harm in tabling this thing for 1 month to get a better look at it?
I don't think there's harm in that, personally. Because again, in light of this other one that I passed around this morning, I think that there's a conscious effort on NCWS to what do you call it? Discriminate in what the review is.
All right, yeah, I mean, again, with that one, then if there's no harm, I'd rather table for 1 month and put real effort in to be fair to the applicant. Either way, if we're gonna accept, it should be fairly accepted, and if it's denied, it should be fairly denied,
Right.
in my
So
mind. With a proper, good, hard look at everything. So I recommend tabling Omar Perez for
for
further review.
clarification from NCWS on the evaluation, consistency with the model law. Is that close?
Yeah, I think that's what we've been trying to do here, right? Follow the
Yes.
model law, so. Yeah, I'd be good with that.
Okay. So is there a second to the motion to table the decision on Omar Perez pending clarification from NCWS evaluation on the undergraduate program?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? So all those in favor of the motion to table the application for Omar Perez, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Jane, was that clear enough to notify the applicant what the concern is?
Yes, and then am I contacting NCES with your questions, or is that something John was doing, or?
No, I think you can do that. And John wanted to have a clarification on it, on another aspect of it, I believe. But
Okay, so what
I think what
exactly
you-
am I asking them?
I think what you're trying to get out of NCEES is, did they evaluate the undergraduate and the graduate programs consistent with an engineering degree of environmental engineering? You know,
Okay.
see, John DeWolf, I think over the years has thought that the undergraduate curriculum should be a broad education, right? So that you have an exposure to structures and soils and hydrology, et cetera, right? Is that what we're doing? And then a few electives thrown in along the way. But when it came up and you were taking a chemistry degree and then you wanted to go into environmental engineering, they didn't mesh because you didn't have the core at the bottom. If you looked at the transcript for Mr. Perez, there was none of that. It was a lot of chemistry and a lot of science, but no breadth of study. I don't think we're on thin ice at this point. I think it's fair to make that pointed out, but inquiry. How was this application evaluated, and is it consistent with the model law for the undergraduate degree? That's all. If you can write that and inquire it, then I think we will have, a reference for the future. And I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but we have a computer engineering degree, a program. So that's an ABET program. Do we have an environmental engineering degree program under ABET that I'm not fully aware of at this point, specifically, rather than the breadth of study. Okay, Jane, all right?
Yeah, just don't be surprised if you get an email from me.
That's okay. We'll try to reword it. And I think John's input before you send the inquiry, but to tell the individual right now that we've tabled his application pending clarification of the evaluation of the undergraduate and graduate degrees as being equivalent to the model law.
Okay, I can handle that part.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on that? We'll move on then to Bob Doan reviewed Schuler, Sofair, and Villette Johnson for Class 1 Credit Part 1.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Schuler and Sofair.
Schuler and Sofair.
Credit Class 1, permit Class 1 exam, Credit Part 1.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Okay, for Viet Johnson, he has a degree from Central. And wait a minute, is Central considered a technology degree? Or is that? I'm sorry, I just had it up on my screen and I just closed it. Is the Central 4-year degree, is that fully accredited?
I'll double check.
I always thought it was.
Okay.
I had another one.
I think you're right, Tony. I was just confusing it with a technology degree.
Yeah, I think more recently, Bob. I think years ago, I don't think it was, but I think years ago it was just technology, but I think more recently it might have been.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve Viet Johnson also.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who seconded it? I didn't.
Al.
Al, thank you, Al. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Joshua Villette Johnson, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I reviewed the next applicant, Sean Michael McDuff, Class 2 Credit Part 1. I would recommend approval. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
I'll
So
make the
moved.
motion.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rob. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I reviewed the next group of Class 4 applicants for reciprocity. There were 9. 1 traffic, 3 structures, 2 mechanical, and 3 environmental or geotech. All but 1 were model law. And I would recommend a approval for all as Class 4 reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor of the motion to approve are DeBelli through Dilge on page 3 for Class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to page 4 for Class 4 reciprocity, Richard Swezak reviewed Edwards through Minalwi for Class 4.
I make a motion that I'd like to start a discussion about Kyle Kartner.
Yeah, Kartner.
I guess he has, a chemical engineering degree, and he's been working for the Dentist Group, which is, I guess, some kind of a processing food firm. And he has 17 years of experience. He had a misdemeanor in 2003, but he never really explained what it was. He said, yeah, I had something, that I did, and it happened in 2003. And he also has his last 3 years at the Dentist Group. He has no description of what he's doing. His first 17 years, he has, a description of what he's doing. And his last year, I think it said he became a principal or something. But I guess, they don't have to work for when they're a principal at the Dentist Group. So because he had no description. So, and again, I'm not sure if that we need any additional information. He has, 17 plus years of experience, and if that's just being nitpicky or.
Where's is it an engineering firm?
Yes, yeah, it is.
So he's been working with the same firm, and he's an engineer, and he's licensed in other states.
Yeah, I know he's licensed in at least California. I don't have his his application right in front of me, but and then maybe I'm just being nitpicky because he really didn't explain what his misdemeanor was. He could have said, well, I was jaywalking and I got a misdemeanor, and that would have been fine. And all of a sudden you say, we're past that. And like I said, the last 3 years he didn't explain it, and as long as he's been working, and I guess it really doesn't matter what he's doing there. And maybe, like you said, the principals don't necessarily have to do anything, and they just hang out and get paid. So, but and I guess I just wanted to get that off, sort of in the open, just so that I'm not sort of just glossing over things and ignoring things.
Right.
But in to make a long story short, I'll make a motion that we do approve, the entire lot. Joshua Feld had his, North Carolina engineering, expire on December 23rd. So I'm sure it's been renewed for January, but we should just double check that. And
Okay.
I did have, 2 model law. The one had a degree from Egypt, the other one had a degree from Italy, and they were lacking some general education credits hours, but that they basically they have the experience and the other degree requirements. So I'll make a motion that we accept all
Okay.
11 of them.
Right.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al. Robert, rather. All in favor of the motion to approve Edwards from Minowie on page 4 of our regular agenda for class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Rob Lewandowski reviewed Murphy through Koch on page 4 for class 4 reciprocity.
All right, in the end, I'm gonna recommend approval for them all. But they're, with the exception of 2, they're all model law, good degrees, good experience. Husky Ohanwa was non-model law due to a foreign degree from I believe it's Nigeria. And he has a master's degree also in highway engineering, University of Lagos in Nigeria. His foreign degree was not equivalent, NCES not equivalent, due to 7 credit hours of general education being short, which in the past we've allowed. And again, this evaluation didn't take into account his master's degree. So I let that go. Faith Akin was also a foreign degree, non-model law from Israel. Her degree was evaluated and deemed equivalent. So pretty straightforward. So with all that said, I recommend approval of them all.
Thank you, Rob.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Richard. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Mr. Doan reviewed Landsberger through Wren on page 4 of our regular agenda for reciprocity.
Okay, I just had one question on Langner, excuse me, Christopher Langner. He has a degree in computer engineering technology from Wentworth. And I sent that around to everybody, the transcript. And I was just wondering if that was an accredited engineering degree. And Jane sent me an email stating that computer engineering is an accredited degree, but I just didn't know why they called it computer engineering technology. It's from Wentworth Institute of Technology, which, they have a lot of electrical courses on it. But the description of the courses, it's not your typical basics, I guess.
But that would throw him under class 2 then for experience, would it not?
It would, and he has enough experience. But
I wasn't able to find that particular technology degree on ABET under Wentworth. So they only had just the regular computer engineering, but not the technology degree. So
Okay.
I don't believe that is ABET accredited.
I think this is another one where we need a clarification from NCWS. And I don't know that it's ever been resolved, but they still have this dialogue about not wanting to accept technology degrees as equivalent on the model law.
Right. And what triggers the review is you're going through and you look at their one-page summary, and they're not listed as a model law engineer. And they have a 4-year degree from Wentworth Institute, which I've always considered a great school. But
right, yes.
And he has good experience in electrical engineering.
we can use it as a learning experience for me, is a specific question to NCAAS. Does this program, qualify under the model law? It's got everything you want. It's got the engineering, it's got the computer engineering technology. Is it consistent with the model law or not? This kind of goes along with my other question about the environmental engineering. Is there a accredited program for environmental engineering that would be different than what John DeWolf considers the core, courses requirement under the model law?
Mhm.
I would
Yeah.
agree with you, Tony. I just ran through that, his transcript there, and it's heavily focused on computer/electrical type engineering work, just like that other environmental one was focused on environmental. So
Yeah.
I think it's the same question, different set of, different discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that, with a technology degree, as long as they had, the 6 years of experience, that gave them the additional 2 years and again, even though it's a 4-year degree, for some strange reason, the only thing that I can possibly equate it to is that, the people who are preparing the courses might be lay people rather than professional, academians who, are, definitely involved in just, doing coursework, so that, they might be practicing, engineers who don't necessarily, have the academic background to be, full blown professors, but they know enough to educate people on how to do engineering. So, so sometimes I think that, the presenters of the courses might not necessarily be qualified under an A-BITE accredited, program, but they're not necessarily, not effective in providing information to the students to be, reliable and acceptable engineers after an additional 2 years of experience. And that's the only thing that comes to my mind is that, the people who actually are, presenting the courses might not necessarily be certified professors. So, and that's what and again, that's just an opinion. I'm not sure that I'm, accurate, but, it's just the way that I justify it in my head that, as long as they have that additional 2 years of experience, I'm fine with that. I'm really, really fine with that.
Yeah. Well, I will then, look at it as a graduate engineering technology course, and he has over 8 years of experience. I'll go ahead and include him in the approval, and I'll make a motion to approve all 10 on my list.
There's a second?
I'll second that for sure.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve Landsberger through Red, including Langner for Class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
So
Jane,
Tony, I do
yes.
agree. I do agree with you that we should. I don't understand why NCES doesn't give this program the credit that it's due, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So this individual was not listed as a model law engineer.
Right.
Because he's a technology degree.
Yeah.
So I think, Jane, if you're in communication with NCAAS, perhaps it's time to have for your record and distribute to all of us is how many exam modules do they have right now? I've lost track, to be honest with you. They're always proposing a what do they call it? Exam audit committee to determine whether or not they need another testing module for some discipline. We should inquire what are the modules of examination that are now part of NCAAS. Because if computer engineering is one and environmental engineering is another, then what is expected in those undergraduate curriculum?
Right.
So are you looking for me to get a list from them?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Just say, I think it's readily available, just to make sure that we know that it's there. In other words, how many programs are you testing, right? Which would then correspond to an undergraduate program in the model law. So what we're learning today, it seems, or finding out based on some evaluations by NCSS, is that at least what I've considered to be the core course in engineering no longer is the case. A student coming into class and as a freshman is intent upon studying electrical engineering. He's not required to take all the engineering core courses before he chooses his major. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
I mean, an individual wanted to move into mechanical. They started out with the same program as freshman and sophomore year as I did, right? And they ended up over in mechanical. And now we have environmental, we have computer. So it comes down to what the examinations cover. Well, if you make the inquiry, Jane, we'll see what the response is.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, finishing up on our regular agenda, page 5, we have Class 9 license for only 3 individuals right now, but 3 more. Is there a motion to approve issuance of the license for Class 9 for Amio, Feliz, and Sorowich?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Robert. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on to our supplemental agenda. We had a reconsideration, and my recommendation is to maintain our consistency with Mr. Mayo, which was a denial of the reciprocity due to a lack of qualifying undergraduate degree, supported by a fairly extensive analysis by NCSS. Well, that would be my recommendation.
I'll
And I don't know
I'll
if
make that
anybody else had a chance to review
I'll
that.
make that motion.
All right, Robert. The second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read that application and the correspondence, but I think it's a good summary. And the NCSS said it doesn't meet the requirements. So is there a motion? I mean, it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny the reciprocity for Yusheng Mao based on our interpretation of the model law and supported by the opinion of the NCSS evaluation. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Also on our supplemental agenda, Ryan Thompson reviewed 4 applicants for Class 4 reciprocity: Beck, Gilliland, Hovden, and Kemper.
Yeah, they were all 4 model law, and I recommend all 4 be approved.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Ryan. Who was second? Richard?
No, Al.
Al, thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to approve Beck through Kempert, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Hey, Tony, I don't think Ryan can make the motion.
No, you're
Right.
right. You're absolutely correct. It's been recommended. Let's redo that. You're absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay, I'll
Um,
make a motion that we accept the applications as recommended by Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Richard.
And I'll second.
that.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to approve Beck through Kempert for Class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And thank you, Jane, for your astute observation. Richard reviewed Kim.
Nanglin.
Yeah, you caught me. Kim through McDonough on page 1 of our supplemental agenda for Class 4 reciprocity.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve, the 3 applications, and Mr. Manglin Mott did have just an engineering technology degree from, Central Washington University, and he is non-model law, but he does have 12 years experience. So again, being consistent with our, technology approvals, I'll make a motion that, he be included, because again, I agree with everybody else that, we shouldn't be necessarily separating the technology degrees after they have the experience they need.
Appreciate it. So that's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Correct.
I'll second.
Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Kim through McDonough on page 1 of the supplemental, 3 applicants, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Rob Lewandowski reviewed Sadowski and Wedley for Class 4 reciprocity.
Both model law, good degrees, good experience, straightforward applications. I recommend approval of both.
Thank you, Rob.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Bob, all those in favor of the motion to approve Sadowski and Wedley for Class 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And the last item on our supplemental agenda are the reinstatement for Carcelo, Fatty, and Tislaska. Reviewed by Bob Doan.
I make a motion to approve all 3 for reinstatement.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
An interesting note, Timothy Talaska is a mechanical engineer, and he has a patent on a latch or a shackle for sailing, and he sells them all over the place, and that's essentially all he does is support projects that use his shackles that have a maximum breaking point and a lower strength, and it has a quick release on it. So if you're trying to unlatch your sail, you can just grab hold and put your finger in and yank it, and it releases. And a typical shackle you can buy for like $20. And so I went online just to see how well he's doing. He sells his for around $280. And they're in West Marine and everything. It's a very very successful Alaska Marine and Aerospace service. It was pretty interesting
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Did you buy one?
No, Tony, the best thing to do is to go on somebody else's boat.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to buy anything.
Very well done. Well, anyway, we have that motion out there, so I think we did it already. Yes, we're done with that. Well, interesting anecdote. So I think that completes our regular and supplemental agenda and old and new business, unless somebody knows something else. In which case, I would look across the screen at Mr. Albergina.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you,
And the
Richard.
sun, and the sun finally came up.
Oh,
was
yeah,
that?
we can see it in the background.
Yeah,
Go take care of the kids, Richard, now. Come
That's
on.
good.
yeah.
Commitment.
Well, I think they're in school now. My wife did a good job getting them out the door without any screaming and yelling. So,
All right, good.
all right.
You know,
When do we
when
see
we
you?
got ma- when
When's
we-
our next meeting,
Richard,
Jay?
when we got married, my parents waved goodbye and said, "Had a nice life," you know?
Oh, geez, I know. Well, my wife wants to stay involved, so, and she rules the roost. So, whatever she wants, that's what we do.
That's true.
Good.
All right. See you guys.
When's our next
Take
next
care.
meeting,
Have a
Jay?
good month, everyone.
Yep.
You got our next date?
February
February
13th.
13th.
All right.
All right. See you then.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Thank
All right.
you.
See
Thanks,
you guys.
Jane.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.